So we exchange pleasantries. I say, "Hey, Sue, how are you? Good morning. What's going on? What brings you into the service department today?" And she looks at me, absolute deadpan, serious as can be. And she goes, "Well, there's a problem with my seat heater. See, my seat heater's stuck on and it burned my Beaver."
Welcome back to I Used to Work There. Before we get into today's stories, I wanted to take a few minutes to speak directly to all of you. Over the past few weeks, my family has been living through the most difficult chapter of our lives. As many of you know, our 1-year-old son Foxx was diagnosed with cancer, and in an instant, everything changed. The messages, prayers, donations, emails, comments, and support that have come from this community have been overwhelming in the very best way. So many of you have reached out, shared our family's story, offered encouragement, and reminded Shelby and I that we're not walking this road alone. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you. Right now, Foxx has 5 more weeks of chemotherapy before his medical team at the Stollery can determine whether they will be able to safely remove the kidney tumor and his affected kidney, or what the next stage of treatment will look like. We remain hopeful. We are taking things one day at a time, and we are incredibly grateful for every person who has stood beside us throughout this journey. For those of you who have asked how they can continue supporting our family personally, the GoFundMe created for Foxx and our family is linked in the show notes. Sharing it is just as meaningful as donating. Every share helps our story reach someone new, and every message, prayer, and act of kindness continues to mean more than I can properly put into words. You can also support this show by following I Used to Work There wherever you listen, leaving us a rating or review, or sharing an episode with someone who loves unbelievable workplace stories. And of course, sending us a story of your own. If you have already shared one story and have another, even better. We want to hear it. This experience has reminded me just how powerful stories can be. They help us laugh when we need it most. They help us process the unbelievable, and they remind us that we're not alone. Over the past few weeks, you have also reminded me that I Used to Work There is not just a podcast. It's a community that has shown up for my family in ways that I will never be able to fully repay. Your kindness and support will never be forgotten. And today, we are getting back to what brought us all together in the first place. Coming up in the day shift, a customer walks into a luxury car dealership with a very unusual complaint about a burnt Beaver. A dental assistant experiences one of the most embarrassing moments imaginable while sitting inches away from a patient's face. An employee contracts a rare illness after an office cleaning day. And a luxury consignment store owner faces a fake Birkin scam and a shoe thief bold enough to return to the scene of the crime. Then, before we head into night shift, we will announce the winner of our very first ever Employee of the Month story competition and award one incredible storyteller with our $500 USD grand prize. And when the sun goes down, things take a much darker turn. We are heading inside of a private prison during a code blue that left one medical records clerk questioning everything she was witnessing. We will learn how an IT department uncovered a leader secretly reading millions of workplace emails. Then, we're going to finish with 2 haunted workplace stories, including unexplained money disappearing from a historic visitor center and a 5th floor where crying babies, mysterious music, and empty hotel rooms may not be as empty as they appear. Whether you are listening at work, during your commute, at the gym, or somewhere you probably should not have your headphones in, thank you for spending this time with us. Grab your punch cards, people. It's time to clock in. We're kicking off the show on the day shift. Our first caller of the day is John, and he's coming to us from North Wales, Pennsylvania, with a story that you will not soon forget. John, you had a wild customer experience as a young man. Tell us what happened.
All right, Kelly, here's my story. And I want to start by saying, keeping you and your family and your son Foxx in my prayers. I hope everything works out there. So, for this story, we got to hop in the Wayback Machine. We're talking early 80s. I'm working at a Highline car dealership, 15 minutes from my house. And I'm thinking it must have been a Friday morning because, honestly, there'd be no other reason for me to get there as early as I did unless I wanted to get things going so I could go out and, party with my friends on a Friday night. So I get there, I open up the shop, and I make the coffee, and I get things ready for the day. And open up the front door, and about, 10, 15 minutes later, in walks this bombshell of a girl. We'll call her Sue, although I got to tell you, I will personally never forget her name. And she's, mid-20s, early 20s, maybe 5'8", 5'10", wearing the Daisy Duke cut-off jean shorts. Absolute knockout. Real head turner. So we exchange pleasantries. I say, hey, Sue, how are you? Good morning. What's going on? What brings you into the service department today? And she looks at me, absolute deadpan, serious as can be. And she goes, well, there's a problem with my seat heater. See, my seat heater's stuck on and it burned my Beaver. Now, being the young man that I was at the time, I'm absolutely dumbfounded. And before I could utter a response of stupidity, my brain is literally like sledgehammering the inside of my skull going, ask her if you can kiss it and make it better. Go ahead, ask her. Do it now. The little devil on your shoulder. Fortunately for me, I did not. But to make matters even worse, she then instantly pulls out a stuffed animal that she's been carrying behind her back. And yes, sure as shit, it's a beaver. And yes, its ass is burned. And that probably was the most awkward moment I think I've had in my young manhood life. And it really threw me for a loop. I did get a good chuckle out of it. And I haven't told this story to many people, believe it or not, because it's kind of a funny one. To have to kind of repeat out loud, especially being now a married man. God, hope my wife's not listening. But anyhow, I hope a lot of people enjoy that story and get a kick out of it, enjoy some levity. And I wish you and your family and your son all the best and keep you in my prayers. And thanks for listening. And oh, by the way, love the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for a hilarious story. And I must say that I listened to this story for the very first time driving to the hospital when I needed a great laugh. So once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. For our next caller, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Tracy, calling all the way from Ohio. And she works in a dental office and has a pretty wild story for us. Tracy, welcome to the show. Tell us what happened.
Hi, yeah. My end goal from the age of 13 has always been to work in dentistry. I just love having a captive audience. I love being able to put my hands in people's mouths and they can't do anything about it. But the story that I thought of immediately after listening to a few episodes of the show was a doozy. Okay, so I was working on a patient. I'm the person that puts the fillings in after the dentist drills out the cavity. So I'm an expanded function, which is EFDA, EFDA for short. And no, I don't clean teeth. I'm not a hygienist. I'm a dental assistant. And I was working on a patient and you know how those innocent sounds happen in your chair when you're you scooch or you do something and this time the patient was laid back. I'm sitting crotch to ear on this guy and I scooched the chair and instead of trying to play it off like it was the chair, I went, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So there was literally no way. I legit farted next to his face and there was nothing I can do.
And nothing he could do.
No, exactly. I'm so thankful. I do not remember who the patient is. I know it was an older man. I don't even know if he's still a patient with our office because I do still work there. I love my office. It's great. But I'm thankful that I don't remember because I was mortified. But I did stand up and proceed to go tell every single coworker because it was freaking hilarious. So, yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, that was so awkward.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
It haunts me to this day.
Like you said, you're human.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Thank you, Tracy, for another incredible story.
Appreciate it.
From an unexpected fart to workplace hazards that we never even consider, it is my pleasure to welcome Abby from Edmonton back to the show. Abby, you had an experience. Tell us what happened.
Kelly, this is actually such a silly and crazy story that a friend recently reminded me happened. And I was like, oh, right, I really do give 110%. And so, well, the funny part about it is not-for-profits always ask you to do above and beyond, right? And they hope that you want to do it for the cause. And so I was with this really awesome not-for-profit that I do really love, and I still support them to this day. But we had this director who really loved to be like, we don't need help, we can do it ourselves. And like, why pay for anything when we can do it ourselves? Not really doing the math of like, well, our time is money and really we could be saving ourselves from doing these things. And so there was an annual clean the office weekend where we would have to come in on Friday and Saturday and clean all day to go through all the inventory, figure out what we have, and reorganized for the new year. And it was supposed to be like semi-team bonding, semi-whatever. And this was still in my 3-month probation period. And so I didn't want to be that person who was like, why are you asking me to come in on a Saturday to clean the office? And like, I'm not kidding you. We're on our hands and knees on the floor, like scrubbing. And we're like cleaning out these things. There's these areas that I swear they hadn't cleaned in actually years. And so I start moving these boxes and I'm like, so this looks like rat droppings or like mice droppings. And I'm like, right, Alberta, we don't have rats, but like there's mice. And this doesn't look great. And so I look up at the team and I'm like, should we be using like gloves or like, is there something else we should be doing beyond me just on my hands and knees inhaling whatever this literal shit is? Like, and she goes, no, like, it's fine. It will be nothing. Like, let's just keep cleaning. Like, we'll just move through it. And then at one point, like, my one coworker comes up to me and she's like, girl, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you're clearly trying to secure the job because this is wild. Like, I'm not touching any of that stuff. And I was like, it'll be fine. Like, what's the worst? Like, I grew up on a farm. There's worse things to touch, whatever. So I'm like cleaning. Then Sunday hits and I feel like I've been hit by a truck and I'm feeling so sick. And I'm like, maybe I just overexhausted myself or whatever. And I'm not thinking about it. But then I'm like, my eyes are like burning and I can't stop crying. And I'm like breaking out with all these like hives and things. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, am I allergic to something? I don't know. Yeah. So Monday rolls around. I'm still not good. So I call my boss and I'm like, I gotta go to the doctor. I'm not feeling great. I don't know what's going on. I go get checked out and the doctor's like, oh yeah, something is like not okay. I'm gonna do a rush like blood analysis.
Yeah.
And I get a call. So I go to get my blood work done. I get a call the next day and they were like, have you been working in a lab with mice at all? And I went, no, like I don't. They're like, what do you do for work? And I was like, I work for a not-for-profit. And they were like, because you have like a really rare strain of like a bacterial disease from mice that isn't supposed to be like in humans.
Wow.
I was like,
oh my gosh.
I was like, excuse me? And they were like, so you're super contagious and you need to stay home and you can't be around anyone. We don't actually know what to do. We're going to have to call you back with what other protocols, but we just wanted to make sure you're not at work right now. And I was like, okay. So now I'm calling my boss and I'm like, so how is everyone else feeling in the office? Because I'm ill and turns out with this random bacterial strain that I should not have.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, that's not real. Like, you're making it up. If you just didn't want to come into work this week, you could have just told me. And I was like, no, like I'm not trying to get out of. And I'm like, right, this sounds fucking ridiculous. Like, how do I have a disease that only mice are supposed to have? And now the doctors are freaking out. So then I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I text my coworker and I tell her this, and she's like, I knew it. We were all gonna get sick. And so I didn't know she's the type to get paranoid. So then she was concerned. So then it was this huge thing, and our office had to be reviewed if there were these mice on site, and we had to like call all these things. And of course, at the end of the day, it was just me who got sick because I was the only one who was like, whatever, I'll deal with it. It's fine. And then to this day, the director still doesn't believe that I actually was sick.
Oh, wow.
And so I was sick for like 2 weeks. And so people were like, where are you? What are you up to? And I'd just be like, oh, I'm just homesick. And they're like, with what? And I'd be like, oh, nothing.
I don't even know. They didn't tell me what this was.
Who knew the power of mice could do this? And so then it ended up going, what was even funnier is then that coworker who panicked ended up emailing the board about it, being like, this is a health and safety concern, which honestly, she wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
But then the board had to get involved, and then they were trying to decide whether to keep my contract or not because they genuinely didn't believe that I was telling a true story.
Wow.
So I had to go to my doctor to get a doctor's note to prove that I had this like mice disease and it came from work. And I was like, I wasn't even trying to like make some weird WCB claim here. Like, I was just, this happened, and how does this happen? And also, the most random thing to happen to just an individual trying to live their life.
No kidding. And so, like, you ended up recovering. There was no long-lasting effects.
Thank goodness. Yeah, no long-lasting effects. The only thing was then, like, for the rest of the year that I was there, like, every mouse joke possible was literally the joke. Every gift exchange, I got a little mouse. Like,
yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess we're best friends now.
Well, thank you, Abby, for another incredible story. And I am so happy that you didn't end up with long-lasting negative effects. From the cold winters of Alberta to the beautiful sunny beaches of Florida, it is my pleasure to welcome Jennifer to the show. Jennifer owns a large resale store, and she has some wild stories for us. Jennifer, welcome to the show. Tell us what happened.
So we had this gentleman come in with an Hermes Birkin bag, and if your listeners know anything about Birkin bags, or if they don't, I'm going to give them an education on it. Birkin bags are very hard to get. You can't just walk into Hermes and get a Birkin bag. It just doesn't work that way. You have to spend so much money at their store in order to be able to even qualify to look at one.
Wow.
So this guy brings in this Birkin bag, and he said, oh, my aunt was on the waiting list here in town to get a bag. And then she went to Paris and she was able to buy one. And then they called me and told me that, oh my gosh, her Birkin bag came in. What do you want to do? And she wasn't in town, so she put me in charge of it. I should have known right then and there, but I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Well, so he's like, I want to know, how much you pay me in cash. I want cash for this bag. How much would you give me? And I said, well, let me take a look at it. I took some pictures. So every Birkin bag has a stamp on the little tab that holds the bag together. So I took pictures of that, took pictures of the bag, and I said, you know what, come back tomorrow. He didn't want to leave the bag, and I was okay with that. I said, take it back with you, come back tomorrow. And I'll have my expert who knows Birkin bags, because it's not every Birkin bag's created equal.
Sure.
I'll have her come into the store. He's like, okay, great. So my expert comes in the next day. He comes in the next day. I bring the bag back to the office behind closed doors. And she's looking at it and she's like, everything checks out, except there's a lock that is on the outside of the Birkin bag. And usually it's palladium. And palladium does not chip, it doesn't peel. And this was peeling. It was chipping. Okay. And she's like, this is fake.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I bring the bag back up, white gloves and all, to the guy at the front counter, because we had a store full of customers at that point. And he's like, I said, sir, unfortunately, we're unable to offer you money for the bag. It's not authentic.
And he started escalating his voice. What do you mean? How can this be? And I said, sir, come in the back with me. Just so happens, thankfully, my husband was there.
Yeah.
And one of our employees spoke Spanish because he started speaking Spanish to us. I had no idea what he was saying. So we go in the back and he literally falls to the ground. And he's like, you've switched my bags on me. You gave me back a fake bag. My bag was real. Wow. And I'm like, what? I mean, I'd never had anyone do this, so I was really confused.
Yeah.
And I said, sir, we have cameras everywhere. You're more than welcome to review the footage. We did not do that.
Yeah.
And I go, would you like me to call the police? And I couldn't believe it. He's like, yes, I want you to call the police. I called him, and literally, it probably didn't take them more than 5 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
As he was walking out the door, they met him at the door. And keep in mind, remember, I took pictures the day before.
Yeah.
And he's like, this lady switched out my bag. And I mean, it was very dramatic. And I said, hold on, officer, 1 second. Let me show you the pictures that I took of the bag yesterday with the timestamp and everything. And the officer looks at the guy. He goes, sir, I don't know where you bought this from, but I think you're the one that's been taken. She didn't do anything. So go on your merry way.
Yeah.
It was crazy, but I'd never had anyone do that before, so I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the question is, he was catfishing you, right? Like we can agree that he knew this bag was fake.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Wow. He was just trying to get he was looking for $9,000 in cash.
Wow.
And he wasn't just doing that. He was trying to use competitors in town against me. Yeah. He's like, well, so-and-so is going to pay this amount of money, so why don't you?
Yeah.
Sir, the process is we have to authenticate it first because we're not going to pay anything for something that's fake.
Of course, yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So did you ever see this person again?
Never. Usually it's a one and done. Usually you never see these people again.
Yeah.
Because they're so embarrassed and they knew, okay, well, I'm not going to get one over on her. I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
So usually you don't.
Wow. That is an incredible story, Jennifer. And I'm happy that you are not out $9,000.
I am as well.
You have some more stories for us, so very much looking forward to the next ones. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
And Jennifer was not done yet. She mentioned that most people never come back until they do. Welcome back to the show, Jennifer. You have yet another story for us. You realized that somebody stole a very expensive pair of shoes.
I did. The interesting part was we had realized that the shoes were missing, and it had been about 6 months. They were a very high-end Fendi. They were Fendi. And I'd recognized that the shoes were missing. And 6 months later, this customer comes into the store because we're consignment. So we take things in from our consigners. And the lady walks into the store, and I immediately recognized her and kind of had an idea that she could have been the one that stole them, but didn't really have 100% proof of that. So she comes in and she's like, here, I've got all this stuff to consign. And I look at the bottoms of one of our shoes and our price tag was still on it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting.
Yeah.
So I scan the barcode and sure enough, it says available. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is our shoe thief. Like,
yeah.
These people never come back into the store. Usually people steal, and unless they keep getting away with it and keep getting, they're going to never come back.
Yeah.
But she had the guts to come and try to reconsign a pair of shoes that she had stolen from us. So I said, ma'am, hold on 1 second. And I went in the back to call the police.
Yeah.
So I call the police. The police show up. They know the woman by name.
Wow.
Because she'd been stealing from high-end stores for a long time. And she goes out kicking and screaming. She was spitting at them. It was this whole debacle. It turns out that she was from a very prominent family and this whole interesting thing surrounding it, and went to jail, was released, and then ended up back in jail from running over some guy's yard or some crazy thing the next day. So
Oh, wow.
she came back. I'm just flabbergasted that somebody would have the guts to steal and then try to resell it back to the people that you stole it from.
Well, you know what they say, criminals aren't always the brightest.
That is true. We've heard many a story. We sure have.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, what are the odds, hey? What are the odds that she would come back and like try to sell you back her shoes?
Exactly. It was unreal. Unreal.
Wow. What an incredible story, Jennifer. Thank you so much for coming and sharing it with us.
Absolutely.
And with that, we have officially reached the end of today's day shift. So far, we've heard about a burned beaver, an unforgettable moment in a dental chair, a rare illness picked up during an office cleaning day, a fake Birkin bag, and a shoe thief bold enough to return to the very store she stole from. That is quite the shift. But before the lights go down and we move into the darker half of today's episode, it's time for something that we have all been looking forward to for quite a while. Several weeks ago, we launched our very first ever Employee of the Month story competition, and the response was incredible. We received unforgettable workplace stories from across North America. Some made us laugh until our sides hurt, others left us speechless, and a few genuinely broke our hearts. Listening to and producing your stories has become one of my favorite parts of creating this show, and choosing just one winner was far more difficult than I ever imagined. Before we announce the winner, I want to recognize one storyteller whose experience stayed with me long after I finished editing it. Abby's story, Runaway CEO, was one of the most emotional workplace stories that we have ever shared on this podcast. It was honest, heartbreaking, and a reminder that sometimes the most unforgettable workplace stories are not the funniest or the wildest. They are the ones that show us how much a workplace can take from someone and how difficult it can be to rebuild after everything falls apart. Abby, thank you for trusting us with your story and for sharing such a difficult chapter of your career with all of us. But today, there can only be one Employee of the Month. Our first ever Employee of the Month award, along with our $500 USD cash prize, goes to John from San Diego for his incredible story, Hollywood Shootout. Congratulations, John. From the opening moments, I was completely hooked. It felt like something straight out of a movie. It kept escalating, and somehow every twist was even crazier than before. It was fast, cinematic, unpredictable, and exactly the kind of unbelievable workplace story that I used to work there was created to share. John, congratulations again, and thank you for trusting us with your story. To everybody who submitted, thank you. Whether your story has already aired or is still waiting its turn, please keep them coming. Every submission helps us continue to build this collection of workplace experiences from around the world. And if you've already shared one story and have another, even better. I would love to hear it. Sharing your story couldn't be easier. Pull out your phone, open your voice recorder app, and tell your story like you're telling it to a friend. Make sure that you check it to make sure that it's easy to hear and easy to understand, and then email it to me, hr@IusedToWorkThere.com, for your chance to have your story shared on a future episode. Remember, this show is completely listener driven, so we absolutely need your stories. Before we continue, a quick word from our sponsor. Before we get into the darker side of this workday, let's take a little coffee break. If your garage is packed, but your dream cars deserve better than a driveway, Atlas Elite Lifts might have exactly what you need. Atlas Elite Lifts helps you create more room, protect your vehicles, and turn your garage into something worth showing off. Visit www.atlaselitelifts.com or reach out to Jamie Crozier and the team on LinkedIn. All right, lights down, volume up. It's time for the night shift. Welcome back. The day shift is over. The building is quieter now. The hallways are getting darker. And the stories are about to become a little stranger, a little more unsettling, and a whole lot harder to explain. First, we're heading inside a private prison where a medical records clerk witnesses a code blue that leaves her questioning everything she thought she knew about emergency medicine. Then we're going to hear how an IT department uncovered a leader secretly accessing and monitoring millions of workplace emails. Finally, we're going to visit 2 haunted workplaces that might make you think twice the next time you find yourself alone after hours. So turn down the lights, check the hallway, and whatever you do, try not to find yourself alone at work. This is The Night Shift. For our very first night shift story of the evening, it is my pleasure to welcome Kay from Hartsville, Tennessee. And Kay works at a prison, and things went wildly off the rails. Thanks for sharing your story with us, Kay. Tell us what happened.
Hello, I used to work there. Call me Kay for the purposes of this recording. And I want to tell you a story about what happened to me when I used to work at a prison. I worked as a medical records clerk, and my job primarily consisted of pulling charts. We still had paper charts, filing documents, scheduling medical appointments, entering information into the computer system, and other odds and end little tasks. Like sometimes I would even pull meds for inmates being sent home after they completed their sentence. So anyway, I worked the 2 to 10 shift. So sort of swing shift, sort of night shift. Anyway, go in, normal day, one of the first times we're fully staffed. We have 3 RNs and 2 LPNs. We've got a pretty good crew. Even my supervisor for the night shift was there. And the other RN, who was actually charge nurse that night, had worked in an ER. So both pretty competent people. Anyway, I'm in my office. I'm pulling charts. I'm trying to file paperwork, and I hear a call go out over the radio. Inmate non-responsive, code blue in echo unit. The medical people respond, and a lot of times other officers will respond to go help. And I go out there and check to make sure they've got plenty of the hospital packets. Every time an inmate would go out to the hospital, there had to be packets out there for them to fill out. And I was responsible for making sure that the packets were out there for them, and a lot of times I'd help the new nurses fill them out. I would ask them questions. I would pull the medical records, make copies, and put in the chart in the little packet so that they would have it when the ambulance came. And when they said CPR in progress, I was like, okay, this is probably pretty bad. We may have to send him out. I need to make sure. So, okay, we wait for a bit and they come back in. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to be on top of him. They're going to be super busy doing CPR on him. They wheel this guy back in to medical. Nobody's doing CPR on him. And I look at him for a second. I'm thinking, okay, that's weird, right? And I look at his chest. Well, maybe he's breathing. Maybe he's fine. No, his chest isn't moving. I'm like, that's really odd. And then I go ask my other coworker, who's also a medical records clerk, because there was 2 of us on night shift in the medical records. And I ask her, shouldn't they be doing CPR? I mean, his chest isn't moving. And generally what would happen is if you start CPR, you got to continue it until they start breathing again. And we had a big drug problem at the prison I worked at. Like, even the inmates who were taking, like, tobacco products or marijuana, it was laced with that fentanyl. And it would knock them out. And they would have to Narcan them several times. Well, the 2 charge nurses come back. The charge nurse and the supervisor come back. And they're running around. One of them's trying to do some paperwork. The other one is looking for oxygen. Neither one of them are doing CPR. And when I go back in to tell my coworker that, hey, shouldn't they be doing CPR? He's just in there by himself. She yanks me back into medical records, closes the door, makes sure it latches, and tells me I do not want my name anywhere on this mess. Shh. And after that, it was a real wake-up call for me that even people who are trained get really confused and flustered and just panic. And I really think that's what happened that night. Panic took over, and they didn't know what to do. And they never did call out for assistance from the other medical staff, because there was 3 other nurses there that could have helped them. that could have told them that Narcan was there because it was in their to-go bag they took down there to the unit the inmate was at.
The story cut off pretty abruptly there, but I think we can all safely assume that this inmate didn't make it. And this is our very first death on I Used to Work There. And so thank you so much, Kay, for sharing this story with us. I'm sorry about what you went through there. And obviously, I'm sorry to the inmate as well, because he also didn't deserve that treatment that night. And some stories are heavier than others, and this is definitely one of them. Thanks again, Kay. From an emergency medical incident to an office somewhere in North Dakota, it is my pleasure to welcome Matt to the show. And he has an absolutely unbelievable story for you. Matt, tell us what happened.
Yeah, so I was an IT guy for a local organization. Had started out as kind of a help desk guy, worked my way up. So the head of the department had some issues. He'd had a really ugly divorce. He ended up beating one of his kids over a golf cart. So came out that he had some information that just there was no reason for him to have, right? Like, just how do you know that? Well, somebody else in our department happened to be married to one of the executives. And so this guy says, oh, well, they must have told me. Which got that person in trouble. They ended up leaving. The executive got censured or whatever. It was a whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So that starts to settle out. And he just keeps coming up with these, like, how do you know that? Where did you get that? Have you been talking to people that would have been in that meeting? And finally, he finally spit one out and was just like, okay, nobody was in that meeting. How do you know this? Another person that I worked with said, hey, if you're making copies of like recordings and emails and stuff like that, there's logs of that. We can look. And again, being a perfectly reasonable leader of an organization, his response was, of course, you sure about that? Not, well, go ahead. Not, I know. It was are you sure? So, of course, we looked. And a fun fact, certain enterprise systems, I don't want to name names just in case. But there's two different levels of logging. There's actually a front-end log, which you can get rid of. They call it scrubbing. You can delete those logs. But there's an underlevel that records the deleting. So we ended up going in real deep, learning all kinds of new fun coding tricks, and found out that this person was taking everybody in the entire executive suite, opening their emails, making copies of them, marking them as unread, and then removing his access to it. So nobody could tell that he was doing it.
Wow. And
then, of course, about once a week, deleting the logs, which we had logs showing he was deleting the logs. So we could only go back about 60 days. So printed all that out, took it to, the head of the organization and said, here's what we found. Here's what's going on. Here's what it means. Because of course it's hundreds and hundreds of pages of really boring logging information. Yeah, but it's gave him access, made copies, marked as unread, took away access. Just over and over and over. It's like, oh, well, that's how he knew about this budget thing or this project that we're not even planning on yet, just talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was summarily escorted off the property to the point I actually had to pack up his office. And then I talked to the detective in charge later. He said that they ended up more or less dropping it because they couldn't figure out how to write it up, because it would have been over 4 million charges of wiretapping.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That was what they, it was one of those, this has got to be illegal, but we don't really know what to call it. So they went with wiretapping because it sort of fits in electronic surveillance, but you had to do it for every single instance, every single email. And over those last 60 days, they had at least 4 million instances.
Wow. Like, what was this guy doing with his time? Like, just reading other people's emails all day long?
Great question. And it was funny because after we packed up his office, found one of his flash drives and, of course, looked on it to see what it was. He left it running. even after he got escorted out, he left the script running. We had all the evidence. Oh, hey, look, here's your personal flash drive with this script running off your computer.
Wow. Holy cow. Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that. That's insane.
What's one of those, like, I hate to say you're bad at murder, but like, you just left your fingerprints on everything.
Yeah. My gosh. So I didn't even know that was something we had to worry about, Matt.
It's I learned a lot.
No kidding.
I actually ended up taking over from there. So that was a good lesson in what not to do. Not that I would have ever considered it, but yeah.
So whatever happened to this guy? He just got fired and that was that?
Funny enough, last I heard, he was clerking for the state Supreme Court.
Okay, interesting.
We used to joke that he went back to law school because at some point it's cheaper to defend yourself.
Well, maybe that is what happened. Thanks, Matt. What a wild ride, and we should all be careful with our emails, I guess.
They always say dance like no one's watching, email like it's going to be read in a deposition, and you just never know.
You just never know. Thank you, Matt, for an incredible story.
Thank you.
From a wiretapper in North Dakota to a ghost story in the beautiful capital of British Columbia, Canada, it is my pleasure to welcome Brittany calling in from Victoria. Brittany, you have a story for us. Tell us what happened.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me. It was actually not in Victoria. It was in Nanaimo, BC.
Okay.
A lot of people are probably like, oh, Nanaimo. Because Nanaimo and Victoria are the most haunted places, right?
Yes.
But I had the pleasure of living in Nanaimo for about a year, and I used to work at the visitor center at the Bevan House. So this place used to be a daycare. It used to, I feel like it's been through the ringer of all the things. But at the time when I worked there, I was at the visitor center, and I never believed in ghosts, spiritual beings of anything, or all the above. And I remember the very first day, everybody's orientating me. It was probably the weekend, and they're like, oh, haven't you ever heard the story of the house? I was like, no. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's haunted. I'm like, I don't believe in that stuff. You guys are crazy. No. I love my horror movies. I love all my all the things. And so I still never believed it until this day. But anyways, the Bevan House on Bowen Road in Nanaimo was actually built in the 1930s, and I guess somebody passed away, a young boy, in the hallway, and that's what they say is kind of to haunt the house.
Okay.
And this house has been, if you ever want to look it up, has been on the most haunted houses of Canada, and so you can definitely trace it down. But I would say the true being of me realizing that this house is absolutely haunted was the one day when I was packing up, and I felt really uneasy in one spot. This is around the time where, because I worked there for 2 months. It's a short summer kind of between colleges work environment. And I was about to end my career and move down to Victoria at the time. And before then, I was kind of there's certain stages in the house I felt a little uneasy, but right before I was ending, I felt even more anxious, and I couldn't describe it. I felt I need to get out of here and go fast. And I would pivot the door, I'd be the only one in the house. And it just felt the uneasy feelings in two main places. One where you did the cash out,
yeah,
and the other one really close to the door where they said the unfortunate young boy that has passed there. Anyways, I did my cash out, and everything was fine, other than the uneasiness of run out of the house and never look back.
Yeah.
I did the cash out, put it in the folder there, and I did the passcode and went away. 2 days later, I got a phone call from my manager asking where the money was. And I was like, what do you mean? I know I put it in the folder. I know I was super anxious. I know I did X, Y, and Z. And I was at this point, I was in this state of stress out of they think that I stole the money.
Yeah.
And really, it wasn't that much money. I think it was $25 because we just sold maps. Like it wasn't like
all $26 of it.
yeah, like I really don't think there was very much from what I remember. But I just remember like, oh my goodness, they're going to think I stole the money, like all the things. And I just started to panic. And so she didn't even call me. I think she texted me actually. And she texted back being like, it's okay. It happens all the time, actually, especially when people are about to leave the house, like move on to new things. I was like, what does that mean?
Whoa.
To this day, we've never found the money.
Whoa.
And it made me realize, like, okay, maybe there is definitely like a little bit more behind the scenes of the whole ghost spiritual realm that I never even thought of.
Wow. So it was like something that was just like known, like happens all the time.
It happens for them, at the visitor center, yes. Like that would always happen. And apparently they would have like parties all the time, and they would cut off certain parts of the house that no one could walk into to make phone calls or anything like that. But if you can see on the phone lines as if there was somebody on the phone in the room that no one would be in.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Like,
that's creepy.
Weird scenes like that.
Wow.
So it made me kind of question my thoughts on, is the ghost and spiritual life actually a true thing?
Yeah. And what are your conclusions after that?
Yes, absolutely.
I am such a sucker for a good ghost story. Actually, if I have to look back at like my favorite podcasts, they're always podcasts of the unexplained, the things that we don't have all the answers for. And so thank you so much, Brittany, for coming on and sharing your story here. And if you have a haunted workplace, we want to hear about it. hr@IusedToWorkThere.com. Looking forward to the next story, Brittany.
Thank you.
Well, from a haunted visitor center to a haunted hotel, it is my pleasure to welcome Brittany from New Jersey back to the show. And she has some stories about when she worked at the Flanders Hotel. Brittany, welcome back to the show. Tell us what happened.
Yeah. So, the last two stories, we recapped Emily and Jack. And then I later found out that the fifth floor is much more haunted than just Emily or Jack. So the first time that I realized that the fifth floor may be a little bit more haunted was we were doing renovations. And for people who are familiar with paranormal activity and ghosts, sometimes aren't normally fond with renovations. And when we started renovations on the fifth floor, we have security cameras on every floor. And at night, the orbs that we would witness flying around the security cameras I've never seen so many in my life. I have video on my phone somewhere because I was so shocked by it.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is really crazy. And our maintenance guy said, yeah, that tends to be where most of the ghosts hang out. And I was shocked to hear this from him because he said before he worked at the hotel, he was not a believer in ghosts, paranormal. He said, you couldn't sell me on it. He said, I thought it was fake. And he said, until one night I had a really life-changing experience here on the fifth floor. So naturally I had to ask him what happened. And he said they had gotten some persistent calls about a baby crying in a room on the fifth floor. When they referenced the front desk, they kept checking, all the rooms around the room where the caller was calling from. And they said there's absolutely nobody staying near her. We don't know where this baby is crying from. So he happened to be on staff. He had a key to go into each of the rooms. He said, I'll go up and check some of the rooms around her. And he was convinced that someone left a baby at the hotel. So he goes up to the fifth floor and he said he gets out of the elevator and he said he can hear like a screaming, crying baby.
Gosh.
So
Yeah.
he darts to the room. He's like, I got to go get this child out. He's like, we got to call the police. And he opens the door and immediate silence. And he said he felt chills up his back right away. And he searched high and low in that room. He said, there's no baby in this room. And he came down to the front desk, flabbergasted. And he was like, I don't know what to do. And my manager, who was working with him at the time, said she and him then checked the rest of the rooms on the fifth floor, other than what they knew was occupied, who was the person complaining about the baby. And there was no baby on the fifth floor. So that's one of the fifth floor stories. And I had a very similar experience to that. On the fifth floor, that one night, I had a complaint about music playing in a room on the fifth floor. And I very specifically remember the room that was calling was room 509. And I'm looking at my map and I'm like, there's nobody really near them in the rooms. And having remember the maintenance man story, I started to get a little freaked out. And I was like, I feel like I have to go check. So I grabbed my master key and I head up to the 5th floor. And as I get out of the elevator, I very clearly hear music playing from room 504. And I was like, okay, this is a new one. And I knock on the door a few times. Nobody answers. I knock on the door a few times. Nobody answers. And I let myself in and the music stops.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay. And it was just it was instrumental music. Like, it's not like it was a specific genre, but just like instrumental-y music that was playing. And I'm like, that's a weird one. So I left. I called the other people back. I let them know. I said, hey, I went and checked it out. There's no more music playing. And I said, give me a call if something happens again. And sure enough, they called about 2 hours later. And it was the same thing. And I went up and I can hear music outside the room. And I open the room and the music stops again. And so the 5th floor, a lot of different stories like that. And then just to top it off, one night I actually had to stay at the hotel because there was a really bad storm on the East Coast with flooding. And I was a little nervous, so I called my manager. And we're going back and forth. She's like, "Can you stay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go ahead and stay." And she said, "I'm going to see what room you can stay in." Little fun fact about the hotel is that they're all suite style and they're all privately owned. So when we had situations like that, we would contact owners who would allow, employees to stay.
Sure.
So she gives me a call back and she says, "Hey, one of the owners from the 5th floor says you can stay in their room." I'm like, "Oh no, I don't know if I can." I'm like, is there any other room that I can stay in? And she's like, you'll be fine. Just keep the light on. And I did not get much sleep that night because I was like, oh, we're really close to room 504. And I know there was music playing in that room that nobody was in. So that was a pretty sleepless night. I went down to the desk the next day pretty tired. And that's the stories about the 5th floor.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. I know we talked about this in a previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
What is the hotel?
The hotel is the Flanders Hotel in Ocean City, New Jersey.
Oh, amazing. And it's a classic style, beautiful hotel.
Stunning. Absolutely gorgeous. It actually has the first water well in Ocean City and the only one that's still running over there. And it's fantastic. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous hotel. They have an event space and a restaurant. So even if you don't get the chance to stay, I definitely recommend to just go walk and maybe experience some little ghost interactions yourself over there.
Yes, and obviously we don't always name hotels, but I know Brittany from us talking, this hotel embraces their haunted hotel, don't they?
You can absolutely search some ghost stories on YouTube from them too. Yeah. They've had a ton of ghost hunters go over there and film some really interesting content. They have some catacombs that used to be speakeasy area. A lot of ghost hunters film some content down there, which is really, really cool.
Super cool. And if there's people listening and they love a good ghost hunt, what room should they stay in?
I mean, any on the 5th floor, I feel like you may be okay. Because I could tell you, I did not get much sleep.
Oh, goodness. No, that's amazing. Well, thank you, Brittany. I appreciate your bravery on this one. This show absolutely welcomes the paranormal. It welcomes the unexplained. If it happened to you at work, we want to hear it. Brittany, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Kelly.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of I Used to Work There. To every storyteller who has trusted us with your workplace experiences, thank you. Whether your story made us laugh, left us speechless, or had us looking over our shoulder, thank you for allowing all of us to experience those moments alongside you. If today's episode reminded you of a story from your own career, I'd love to hear it. Whether it's hilarious, unbelievable, heartwarming, heartbreaking, or something that still gives you chills years later, send your story to hr@iusedtoworkthere.com. And if you've already shared one story with us and you have another, even better, keep them coming. If you're enjoying I Used to Work There, there are 3 simple ways that you can help us continue growing this incredible community. First, follow the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode. Second, if we've earned it, please leave us a 5-star rating. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star written review. Those ratings and reviews make a tremendous difference at helping new listeners discover the show every single day. And finally, keep the stories coming. This show only exists because of you. Every unbelievable workplace story you submit helps us continue building one of the most entertaining collections of workplace experiences anywhere. On behalf of Shelby, Foxx, and our entire family, thank you for your incredible support during one of the most difficult seasons of our lives. Your kindness, generosity, and encouragement have meant more than words can ever express, and I will never forget it. Until next time, you've been listening to I Used to Work There. I'm your host, Kelly Kennedy, and we'll see you on the next shift.